This one is dedicated to each and every one of you who appreciate a great glass of wine. You know what I mean?
It's Monday. Let's raise a glass to the beginning of another week. It's time to unscrew, uncork, or saber a bottle. And let's begin exploring the wine glass. It's National Boxed Wine Day, and what better way to celebrate than breaking open the myth that boxed wine can't be both fun and fabulous. I sat down with Chelsea Franchi, assistant winemaker at Tablas Creek, to chat about sustainability, innovation, and why putting great wine in a box is more than just convenient. It's downright brilliant. Join us as we sip, laugh, and explore how this packaging is shaping up the wine world in the best way possible, and maybe rethink your next pour. Please take a moment of your time to subscribe, rate, and review Exploring the Wine Glass. It's completely free and is a great way to let other wine lovers know about the podcast. Be sure to head over to the website, exploringthewineglass.com, to read my award-winning blog and to see what else I have been up to. And most of all, please tell your friends about the podcast. Slainte.
Hey everybody, I'm Lori Budd, a UC Davis winemaking program, Spanish wine scholar, sommelier service, champagne and Côte d'Aron specialist, and a WSET Level 2 graduate. You can find Exploring the Wine Glass on all the socials, as well as your favorite podcast catchers. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to swipe, subscribe, rate, and review. Stay in the know about all things wine by visiting my website, exploringthewineglass.com. I promise I'll never tell you what to drink, but I'll always share what's in my glass.
You are special.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Exploring the Wine Glass. Today is a very special day because it is National Boxed Wine Day. And I am so excited because I have boxed wine to celebrate with, thanks to Tablas Creek. And I am sitting down with Chelsea Franchi, who is the assistant winemaker at Tablas Creek. And first of all, thank you so much, because I know this is a very, very busy time of year. So I appreciate you taking an hour out of your time to sit down and talk boxed wine.
Yeah, thanks for the break, Lori. This is great.
Sometimes you need to get out of that cellar a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Out
it's
of the
very
field.
quiet in here. It's lovely.
Yes. So before we actually get into boxed wine, people who listen to this podcast, Jason has been on this podcast multiple times. He is one of my favorite people in Paso. He's probably one of my favorite people, but definitely in Paso. A wealth of knowledge. So some people are pretty familiar with Tablas Creek, and but let's just give them a revamp, a reintroduction to Tablas Creek. So tell us a little bit about Tablas Creek's history, a little bit about your history, and how the two intertwine.
Absolutely. So Tablas Creek is located in Paso Robles, California. We are a partnership between a French winemaking family, the Perrin family of Chateau de Beaucastel, located in the Châteauneuf-du-Pape region of the Rhone Valley, and a gentleman by the name of Robert Haas, who is Jason's late father. The story goes is that Robert Haas had a wine importing company on the East Coast, and he started his wine importing years essentially up in Burgundy. And then once people really started to trust his palate, he was able to expand his scope down to the Rhone Valley. And that's where he met the Perrins. So for a number of years, he was the sole importer into the United States of Perrin wines and the Beaucastel brand. And after a number of years of this working partnership and friendship, they decided to do basically their own adventure together. So they started Tablas Creek. They wanted to do Rhone wines in California. This at that time, that was, the Judgment of Paris, and all of a sudden California wines were coming onto the map and gaining notoriety and attention, and they wanted to try their hand. So they found this beautiful pocket here in Paso that basically ticked the three boxes they were looking for. One was the ability to dry farm. They wanted enough annual rainfall so that they could dry farm if they wanted to. Obviously, here in California, you can farm however you want to, but in the Chateauneuf-du-Pape, they are mandated that they are not legally allowed to irrigate most of their varieties. The other thing they were looking for was higher pH soils. We have an incredibly high instance of calcareous limestone shale out here, which really holds on to moisture quite well. So, we have a rainy season, which is different than how they get their rains in France, which is basically all year. We just have that one season, but these limestone soils are able to just suck everything up, and our root systems are able to tap into that, throughout the growing season.
Examples right behind you.
Yes, yes. And then the last thing was essentially the heat. We need, and people that live or have been to Paso Robles in the summer understand that we have the heat that is required to, ripen and properly grow Rhone varieties. We need a lot of sunshine, but everybody loves to talk about that diurnal swing, and that is extremely important for our wine growing program here at Tablas Creek and for everybody here in Paso Robles. So, that 50-degree differential between, 50 degrees at night and 100 degrees during the day allows us to make wines with balance. We've got the ripeness that we get from those temps during the daytime, but we're able to maintain our acidity with the cooler temperatures at night. All of that being said, Beaucastel was really a pioneer as far as organic farming goes. And I think that really laid the groundwork for who Tablas Creek was going to become. So to that end, we are certified organic, we are certified biodynamic, and we are the first winery in the world to have achieved regenerative organic certification. All of this is because Tablas Creek is a winery that is interested in pushing boundaries and really examining things from every possible facet and trying to find ways to do it better. And I can say that confidently because everyone on the team is tasked with that goal. So all of us here at Tablas Creek are basically looking deep into our specific areas and our arenas of expertise and finding ways to improve upon that. So I've been here about 18 years, I believe. And seeing the growth and evolution. I mean, there's been a lot of changes, but it's all been with, a very concise goal in mind and very concise vision. So there's been a lot of evolution, but not a lot of upheaval or change or anything like that. Everything has been really focused.
Okay.
So yeah, one of those big changes, I think, has been our packaging efforts. And that doesn't just go, I know we're talking about box wine today, but that goes for our packaging across the board. We've changed up our case boxes so that they're not flood printed anymore, eliminating the ink on those boxes. We've changed up our glass manufacturing facilities to really lightweight our bottle as much as possible. And, in that vein, then it's led us to the box wine movement, which has been a learning opportunity. It has been a lot of learning, which is one of the coolest parts about this job. There's always something new.
That is true.
Yes. Yes. That goes for the wine industry as a whole. Absolutely. Yeah, but this has been something that has been a really cool journey. And I would say, for me as a customer, I love that box wine is now gaining this foothold because I want box wine in my home. I want premium box wine in my home. And then as a producer, it's fantastic because, we were able to build this community. Other wineries are interested in, trialing the box wine program. And so they're coming to us and we're going to other wineries that have more experience with it than we do. And you just now have this network of community that, everybody's excited about it. And yeah, what could be better than that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is something I think is true with the wine industry in general. The majority are always willing to share what they know and to help each other. And I think that's wine industry in general, but Paso Robles, I think that's one of the most defining things about Paso. People will come into our tasting room and they'll ask me, well, where should we go next? And we'll tell them. Same thing. People will come into the tasting room because somebody has recommended us to them. And they're like, this doesn't happen every place else. You guys really aren't competing against each other. And I said, well, it's there's wine for everybody to enjoy. And if you tell me what type of wine you like, we want you to enjoy Paso. So I do
Mhm.
think that it is a very unique feature in Paso. But in terms of the wine industry itself as a whole, likes find likes, and wine peeps find wine peeps, I think. Now, you said you were there for 18 years. You've been at Tablas for 18 years. How did you get there to start off with? What
Yeah,
made you
so
decide, yeah, Tablas offered me this job, and yes, this is where I want to be? And then obviously to be, especially in today's world, someplace for 18 years means that something is really good.
oh, without a doubt. So I'm from Northern California originally, the Sierra Foothills, which is now, a really,
Yeah.
really excellent wine growing region in its own right. But I came to school, I went to Cal Poly and I studied agricultural business and wine and viticulture. And I had been applying for just winery positions. I wasn't 21 at the time, so I was basically looking for, a bar back position or something,
Right.
something like that, so that I could at least get a foothold. And then when I turned 21, could start, pouring wine. So there was a greeter position available at Tablas Creek. And I took the job, and it was basically a glorified hostess where I worked on the weekends. And told people that I would come get their party when a spot opened up at the bar. And it was great. It was so fun because I got to be around people that were wine tasting and on vacation and having a great time. And I just loved the spirit of Tablas Creek. I mean, the people that work here, it attracts a special kind of person. It's people that are interested and engaged and excited and motivated and just inspired, just really inspired humans here. So it's this microcosm Stoke, which is, I just love being in that environment, and I just feel incredibly honored to be in that environment. So when I turned 21, I moved my way into the tasting room. And after I graduated from Cal Poly, I had told the tasting room manager, John, who still works as the tasting room manager here, told him that I was going to start applying for cellar positions because I wanted to be in the cellar, and knew that there wasn't anything available here. So just, gave him the heads up that I'm looking for jobs. So, if you need to hire somebody else to fill the tasting room position role that I'm leaving empty. And he talked to Neil Collins, who's the executive winemaker here at Tablas Creek, and Jason Haas, the manager, who you well know, and they made a position for me and offered me a
Oh,
job. So I had gotten a few other offers, and it was such an obvious choice, like I know how much I love this place. I know how much I love being in this environment, surrounded by these people. So I gleefully took the job and have, slowly been adding to my workload since. And just, I mean, the learning that I've done here at Tablas Creek, and it's so funny because I feel like there's chunks of years where it's just, things just kind of explode. And, the new challenges that we're faced with, and, how to overcome those it's been awesome. It's been really, really fun. Yeah, and now we're in harvest, which, as you know, every second is a new challenge and a new problem to solve. So yeah, it's really fun here.
oh, that's amazing. It really is. And when I go there, you can just see uh, the vibe, the aura, that there is. I'm a believer in auras, and you can just walk into a room and you can sense there's tension, or you can walk into a room and you can just sense that there's happiness and there's joy. And whenever I go to Tablas, it's always that joy. It's always that happiness. And these are people who are working hard, but they're loving what they're doing, and it shows. You can't hide that all the, that,
No, no. And
yeah,
I mean, so much of that is the team, and like I keep saying, this is the team that wants to push things and wants to make things better, so as far as the property goes, as far as interpersonal connections go, as far as the end product goes, all of these things have to be top notch for the end product to be exceptional. Right. And we're in the middle of, well, we're starting harvest now, and we have our interns that just came on board, and explaining to them, like the energy that you bring into this cellar, things will get hard, things will be difficult, you will be exhausted, but it's how you handle that. And, and these are all life lessons. Like it's not unique to the wine industry. If you can still be tired and have a smile on your face and, hand somebody a high five as you walk by them, that makes a huge difference in the wines that we're going to be creating by Harvest's End. Yeah, because the energy that you bring into the cellar is absolutely going to make a difference as far as everybody else's enjoyment level of this harvest. And then the more people are having fun and the more people are enjoying being around each other and having a great time at work, the wines are going to be better for it. So
I agree 100%. I agree. So we are here because today is National Box Wine Day. And man, has it come a long way, because, when you first started seeing boxed wine, it was that one special wine, that everybody just was like making fun of, and it was on TV shows, just like, hey, and all of this. And it was not good. It was not, there is no other way to say it than it was not good. So now it's no longer just about being in the box and that the quality is there, and it's the sustainability of it. So before we get into the process of it, what are your thoughts to know that now there's a holiday celebrating boxed wine?
I mean, I didn't actually know that there was a holiday celebrating boxed wine, but I'll use any excuse. It is funny, seeing that evolutionary arc of boxed wine, but it's not really that surprising, given that we do have new consumers that are interested in, obviously interested in sustainability. That's a huge talking point, which is fantastic. Like, this is the future that all of us want. That's great. This is the future that all of us want in the wine industry, but the fact that consumers also want that's amazing, because those things don't necessarily always align. The fact that this is alternative packaging, it's great for the wine, it's great for the consumer, it's great for, your carbon emissions. Again, these things don't always line up that well. This is, one of those situations where it's a win-win-win. I think as a winemaker, I'm excited because we're always looking at alternative packaging and just things that are, just let's try something new. Let's do something else. Let's see what can be a little bit better. As a consumer, I love this movement. Because there's those two sides. There's the winemaker side of it, and then there's the consumer side of it. And luckily, we get to walk both of those roads. But from a consumer standpoint, I love it. My husband loves it. It's wine on tap in your home.
Yeah, right. What's not to love?
Yeah.
What's not to love? All right. So we're going to get a little geeky here. Because it's wine in a box. So viticulturally and from the winemaking aspect of it, are you looking for something different in the grapes? Are you growing grapes differently if they're going to go into the bottle versus if they're going to go into the box? What are you looking for, or is it the same?
So the wines that we do for the Bag and Box program, we started by trialing our Patelon range of wines. So at Tablas Creek, we have our estate wines, that are all grown on our estate. They're all processed here. They're bottled here. And then we have our Patelon line of wines. And so Patelon in French means like a country neighborhood. So for the Patelon wines, we're purchasing fruit from neighboring vineyards, all within Paso Robles. We do a red, a white, and a rosé. And these are essentially wines that are much more value oriented. They sell for $28 a bottle. And these are wines that you can find widely distributed across the US. And that's probably what you'll find most frequently at, restaurants by the glass lists or at wine bars, whatever. And it's a great intro to Tablas Creek because it is fruit that is purchased from other vineyards, but it's always going to be our own varieties. And it's all processed the same way that we do any of our other wines. So we're still using native yeast fermentations. We're still treating these wines exactly as we would our estate wines. It's just grown by somebody else, and another connection that we've made, another business relationship. So these wines being value oriented, we have really had a good time just making sure that we're kind of playing around and exploring our options. So for years and years and years, we've been kegging these wines. So I did mention the by the glass programs and restaurants. A lot of these restaurants across the United States are now getting wine on tap programs. So we'll keg the wines, send them to the accounts, they'll send the kegs back. So we're cutting down on, all of our dry goods that we're purchasing, and then also the dry goods that are being thrown away or recycled, and just using that stainless steel keg over and over and over. And that has been a really successful program for us. It's been great for all these restaurants. It's even better for the people that are buying these by the glass wines that are on tap versus in a bottle that have been open for who knows how long. And so, the Petalon wines seemed like a perfect fit for us to really get into the bag and box program. Being that they are more affordable, it put it in a position where even at $30 a bottle, that box is 4 bottles, and retailing for, I don't know what it costs now, but initially it was offered at $95 a box. And that's a tough sell, especially since historically box wine has been that same 3-liter box.
Plus, even though it is 4 bottles, it doesn't look like it's 4 bottles. So you feel like, you feel like I'm walking out for $100. I'm walking out with this little thing,
Well, if
So
you are worried about it, when we first got those boxes actually, or when we first got our, original shipment of bags and boxes, all of us were definitely doubting, like, this is not 4 bottles. And so we actually measured it. We've done our due diligence, because all of us doubted it too, but it is in fact 3 liters. Yeah, but that seemed like a really great place to start, because this is something that, it's an easy wine to drink, and we want this to be something that is easy and approachable and, good for all occasion kind of situation, or something that, if you just want a glass of white wine, once a night, this is going to be a really easy wine to just enjoy. So we started with those 3 wines, the red, the white, and the rosé from Petalon. And then last year, we also introduced a chillable red from our estate, which is what you have. So that's the Alouette Grenache. And it's just light and affable and juicy and entirely crushable. And that one did not last long in my house. And that one's kind of interesting because we only did that wine in box last year.
Oh, okay.
And then this year we expanded it so that we did a box wine component, and then we also added 750 milliliter bottles. So we're kind of going backwards now.
But so is when you're harvesting that fruit, is it the chemistry of it, is it the same whether it's going in the box or in the bottle?
It is. So, sorry, I got sidetracked there, but essentially what we're doing is we are making our wine, and it's going to be the same no matter what format it's being packaged in. So whether it's going into 750 milliliter glass bottle, whether it's going into keg, whether it's going into bag and box, it is going to be the same wine, the same blend. The difference is, however, we do need to make sure it is really well protected. So wines that are going into bag and box format, we do need to make sure that they have extremely low dissolved oxygen levels. So that means that we are, keeping that DO very, very low, bubbling CO2, bubbling argon, bubbling, nitrogen, keeping it blanketed really well, keeping all those always stainless steel barrels topped up to the very top, because with glass, it's a pretty impermeable material.
Container.
Yeah. And then with those wines, we use a screw cap closure. So the ingress of oxygen into that package is next to nothing. And that's the challenge with bag and box, is that, it's not meant for aging. These are wines that are not meant to hold on to for really any amount of time. They are meant to enjoy. They are meant to bring home and open and consume with glee. So yeah, with these wines, it's really just making sure that they are well protected from oxygen. So there are considerations as far as which wines are more appropriate for this package. One of the things that we do need to watch out for, you really don't want anything with high volatile acidity. You don't want anything with too high titratable acidity, because that can really increase the transmission of oxygen into the bag. And then the other thing is, I mean, as far as, this is more of a consideration once people get it home or where it's stored. Temperature, like higher temperatures, will also increase that oxygen transmission rate. So if you have kind of a lower to average TA and a very low volatile acidity level, and you keep your wine in the bag and box format cool, I mean, we say that could probably last for up to a year. We recommend about 6 months. We'll shorten that just to make sure that, the product that you're enjoying is going to be at peak performance. And these are just as far as like when you open it and start to enjoy it. And then we say, once you open it, probably within the next 6 to 8 weeks, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it lasts that long.
And that's what we hear over and over and over is, I don't know, I think there might be a hole in the bag because that went really fast.
So you guys do have your own bottling line. Is this how is this actually bagged? I can't say bottled. How is this actually bagged?
So we did purchase a Tor semi-automatic bag and box machine. And that was how we did the first few years of bag and box runs. And this format just started to grow so quickly for us. And it got to a point where we have so many other things going on in the cellar, and it's a big time suck. It is an immense amount of manpower and man hours that it takes to make a bag and box package, because it's a very different situation than the people that have historically been doing bag and box projects. Because if you think about, you're talking about, the Franzias of the world, where you see them at every single grocery store across the entire United States, every single like big box store, you can find them there. They are doing millions and millions and millions of boxes of these in a week. It's astronomical. Like my brain, understanding how this operates at Tablas Creek, cannot understand how they operate there, because it's a very different program. And so for them, they have the fully automated lines, they have everything that's done on the machine, and they have cameras to make sure that things are going as they should, because it's going by too quickly for the human eye to catch. And we are obviously not that. We are doing everything by hand. And so the bag and box segment is not really outfitted for people like us. It's not really built up for wineries of our size. And I do think that is changing, because so many more wineries are looking into this and interested in this. And so I think that will start to change. But when we first got off the ground, it was just, kind of figuring out from scratch.
Overwhelming. Yeah.
It was overwhelming. And it was just a lot of time. And that's, it's a worthwhile investment. Absolutely. And I'm glad we spent the time, and I'm glad we put in the effort. Since then, we have sold the Tor machine. So one of our neighbors here in Paso Robles has it. So it still lives on in Paso and is making a great product down the road. And we now contract with a company located up in American Canyon, and they are essentially a bottling specialty house. So Infinity Bottling up in American Canyon specializes in bottling, they are a contract bottler. So people, send their wine up there and they handle all of it. And they purchased a semi-automatic bag and box machine. And one of the reasons we decided to do that was because we were learning a lot, but we are winemaking specialists, and we are not necessarily packaging specialists. And yes, we want to learn, but we definitely don't want to learn on the go. And we absolutely certainly do not want to learn at a consumer's expense. And so finding a partner like Infinity Bottling that is a packaging specialist, and they have a very robust lab that is fully staffed with people that are constantly doing QC checks and doing that wet chemistry and knowing what to look for and knowing their machines inside and out, that is a major boon for us, because now we have peace of mind that we send our wine up there exactly as we want it, and they take care of the rest. And they do a very, very good job of it for us.
My husband and I, we both come from product development.
Mm-hmm.
So, and bags like these, the machines that do them for just food products, there's a lot that can go wrong, between the hermetic seal and just keeping the temperature. And then a lot of time, with the wine, then you can't really do the temperature that they really want it to be at to seal the bag, because then you're eating the wine.
Mm-hmm.
So I get there could be a lot that goes wrong in this tight little box, and putting it together. So I can imagine what it was like on the line trying to do it. I've never seen a wine box be put together, the bag and box be put together, but food products that, if you just think about not food stores, but restaurants and those big places that, these bags are in a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot that goes wrong when you're trying to get the bags, the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's always potential for things to go south. And so, partnering with somebody that has
the expertise,
has the experience, has seen those things, knows how to avoid those pitfalls, that is excellent for us.
Right. So now, you did talk about it a bit. So this is the Grenache. Okay. And so you mentioned that you started with the other line. So how many bag and boxes are you making? 4? A red, a white, a rosé, and then the Grenache?
Yes, that's where we are currently.
Okay.
We keep pushing for a Vermentino too, but we'll see.
Ooh, that sounds awesome. And now, besides the obvious benefit of there's no cork taint here, what can somebody expect, or is there any difference if you who know your wine, if you did a blind taste, do you think you could tell the difference between the Grenache that came out of a box and the Grenache that came out of a bottle? Is there any sensory differences, you think?
So I would say that's more of a timeline question.
Okay.
I think if you're 3 to 4 months into, purchasing that box, I would not be able to tell the difference. And we've done tastings like this fairly frequently where we have, wine that's been put in, 750 ml glass bottle, wine that has been put into keg, because we pour the majority of our wines for the tasting room out of keg now, and then wine that has been put into the 3-liter bag and box format, and doing tastings with those 3 glasses lined in front of you. Like I said, as a timeline question, earlier on in that timeline, you absolutely cannot tell the difference. I mean, these are wines that we know inside and out and, pretty intimately, right. And we can't tell the difference. I would say though, later on in that timeline, as you start to shift that down, if you're getting close to a year after that wine goes into bag and box, there's definitely a difference, because you do have much more oxygen and transmission and ingress. That is to say, it's not necessarily that it's gone bad. It's not spoiled. It just feels much more mature. So essentially, that life cycle of the wine has been sped up significantly, because if you think about, if we just eliminate the fact that, these wines are typically bottled under a screw cap closure, like let's imagine that we were bottling under cork, and then you lay that wine down, age it for 10 years, and you are going to have that evolution. You are going to have that maturity level. This is essentially what we're experiencing with the bag and box on a much, much tighter timeline. It's just that oxygen introduction and the interaction with the wine. So, you do start to feel the tannins drop out. You do start to feel some of that like oxidation. So far, all of these wines are holding up really, really well. And these are all things that we know. These are all things that we expect. And as I keep saying, like, these are not wines that we want people to lay down. Don't hold on to these. But yeah, they're fantastic.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Dracaena Wines loves to give back. There are so many fur babies that deserve to find their forever home. We would love to be able to help as many as possible. If you are part of a nonprofit organization or know of a nonprofit organization that would like to hold a fundraiser, please contact us at contact@dracaenawines.com or visit our website, dracaenawines.com, to fill out the form. How does the fundraiser work? It is super simple and costs your group absolutely nothing. Together, we will choose a month that your group will be sponsored. During the month, you promote the fundraiser just like any other event you'd hold. At the end of the month, we will donate 20% of the sales to your organization. The donations will be made in the name of each individual who purchased the wine so that you know exactly who helped the animals. Our goal is to raise as much funds as we possibly can and to help as many animals as possible. So please help us help as many fur babies as we possibly can.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question. Was there any surprises as you were developing this line of boxed wines? Any surprise good or surprise bad, or a technical hurdle, like you were like, okay, I'm going in this direction. Oh, no, we can't do that.
I think for the most part, we're not really a company that just shoots from the hip. We do try a lot of things, but we do a decent amount of due diligence beforehand. And so, really talking to a lot of people that do have experience in the bag and box segment. And, one of the wineries I would be remiss not to mention, but Jake over at Really Good Box Wine, that's the company, that's the brand he has, is Really Good Box Wine. Mm-hmm. And he was instrumental in really kind of like holding our hands and being so patient and walking us through this whole process. And, even with us having such a low experience level. And so the questions we were asking were so basic and so elementary, and that he was basically expounding upon those, very, very simple ideas and just like giving us so much more information than we had asked for, and just filling us with the knowledge that he had acquired. It did feel like when we finally, stepped into this new adventure, we were pretty well prepared as far as what to expect and, potential pitfalls and things to avoid. And yeah, one of the things, I think packaging has been a challenge. I think the biggest challenge for us has been really the filling and the building and the packaging, knowing as far as the chemistry goes and as far as the wine goes, like we're pretty well prepared on that front. But sourcing packaging is challenging because, again, we're not going to be ordering millions and millions and millions of bags. And the minimum order quantities for a lot of these producers is like more than we will do in Tablas Creek's lifetime. So, finding sources for the materials is difficult. But we've, again, been able to find some really good partners and be able to kind of navigate these waters. And I think as time continues on, it's going to get easier and easier because, like I said, more consumers are interested in this, more wineries are starting to pick this up. So that's good for all of us.
Yeah, if more wineries are making it, more consumers want it, then there'll be more businesses going into the business of supplying it.
Yes,
it will help out. It will help out. But actually, I'm like thinking about this as you're talking. This has to also be easier to just ship.
Yes and no. It is significantly lighter. So we talk about, the carbon emissions of bag and box versus, 4 bottles of wine. Mm-hmm. And
actually on the back of the box.
Yeah, there you go. There's all the intel. Yeah. So essentially what we learned is that bag and box offers an 85% reduction in carbon emissions versus glass bottles. And much of that actually comes from the production of glass bottles. To make a glass bottle takes an immense amount of energy because you have to heat the glass up until it's just in this molten state. And it requires a lot of energy. And then you're shipping the bottles, from the production facility to the winery. And then once you fill them, you're shipping them from the winery to wherever they're going. And then, our recycling situation in the United States isn't quite as robust as we would like it to be. And so whether or not these are properly recycled is really anybody's guess, which is frustrating. And so with the bag and box, you are cutting down on that initial carbon emission suck from the production of glass. It is a plastic product, which is not necessarily the ideal for us. but there's always going to be this balancing act. Unfortunately, there is no perfect answer. So we are kind of just, trying all different things and seeing what's best. But right now it's just kind of like spreading it out and trying to do the least harm. So yeah, I think with all of these things, the four bottles of glass being shipped is we have containers. Your original question was, is it easier to ship these boxes?
Right.
We have containers, with like the recycled pulp that are like specially molded to these glass bottles. The bag and box has been different because we didn't have specialty shippers. So in the early days, we were getting, calls from customers that had ordered 3 boxes and they had kind of gotten smashed in transit. And so we were sending them replacements. But now we have worked together with some of our other suppliers, and they've created these like special nesting boxes that cradle them. So again, the challenges seem to be like the actual packaging. It's always the packaging. I think we've got it now, but yeah, I think the challenge is that, with the glass bottles, we have things in place. Like that's industry standards.
Right.
Everybody's doing that. Everybody has, your preferred method of shipping those wines.
Right.
And then to ship a bag and box, you're basically starting from ground zero and figuring it out as you go. So I do think we've got it locked in pretty well now. So we've got 1 and then 2 and then 3 box shippers, depending on how many you're ordering.
Right.
Yeah, but it's all a learning process.
And with that concept of bag and box is really, US is kind of slow on it, but it does have the earlier years had such that bad reputation of it just was like really bad, cheap wine. Then you have the juxtaposed position of Tablas Creek that is absolutely not just bad wine. So when you first introduced boxed wine, were people kind of perplexed? Were they like, I'm not really sure what to do with this because there's so much quality and now here's a box. What am I doing here? Like,
No, I would say quite the opposite.
Good.
People
Oh,
were
yay.
so excited. No, it was fantastic. Lori, the initial response we got when we released that first batch of bag and box, we did a smaller run of rosé. And I think we did, I don't know, maybe 700, 800 boxes. We're just dipping our toe in the water and seeing what this looks like, unsure of what was going to happen. And, thinking, well, if people don't really buy it, then we'll buy it. All of us will buy it. And it sold out in 4 hours. And
oh my gosh.
People that missed out on the window were very upset, and let us know.
That's awesome. Was that to like your club members to start off with? Or did
It was, yeah. I think it was
4 hours. That's like faster than concerts.
It was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, people are like running through the offices, like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Yeah, and it's so cool. It's so cool because we get so excited about things, and then when that translates to, the outside, because we get excited about our own ideas, and that's why we do them. That's why we do them. But when other people get excited on the same level, that's when the magic happens, I think. Yeah, so we've slowly been increasing, our production amounts and just letting people know well in advance, like, hey, this is when it's being released. If you want to get your hands on this, this is the day.
Get on the computer at midnight because that's when they say.
Yeah, luckily it's no longer like that because we have a much better understanding of how much people are going to want and being able to fulfill that. And one of the things that we started doing, especially with the rosé, is boxing it in stages. So we do 2 boxings a year now. So we'll do initial boxing kind of at the maybe tail end of January, early February to satisfy, that early rosé season.
Right.
And then we'll do another boxing in June to satisfy kind of like the summer segment. And just most of that is to make sure that, what's being sold is of utmost freshness. And like perfect for when they're going to be consuming it. So, if people want to, like, you still want to drink rosé in August, but if it was bottled back in January, then, for our thinking, you're kind of pushing that timeline. But now we've been able to split that up a bit and just make it better for everybody.
Right. And like here in the US, I think that we are so far behind in accepting things. We just don't want to accept change. They're not very good with accepting change. So, like the screw cap, it took forever for people to say a screw cap is not bad wine, right? I mean, I know so many people who were adamant, I will never drink a wine that's under screw cap. And now they're drinking wine under screw cap, and we still have that research, of that people think a quality wine, there was a research of the same wine, they pulled a cork and they unscrewed it in front of people. It was the same exact wine, and people voted the cork to be a higher quality wine, and it was the exact same wine. So we're still stumbling over, accepting things or whatever, or the perception of it. And so the boxed wine, I just learned to this. The box wine was actually patented in 1960. So
Been around a while.
yes, it sure has. And man, we are slow on the uptake when you think 1960. My goodness, what do you think? What's your opinion on why we're so darn slow in accepting things?
Well, I mean, I think a huge part of that is just who the early adopters were and just really locking in people's brains the kind of quality that you can expect. And there's nothing bad about that, because if somebody starts off with, kind of that grocery store bag and box brand, and then they move on to other wines, and then eventually they find themselves at Tablas Creek, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to that bag and box producer. And you know what? On the other side of that coin too is if people just start with that bag and box and that's what they like and that's what they're going to drink, more power to you. Like we're all here for a good time. And if that makes your day a little bit better having that in your glass, then have at it. But I think for a lot of consumers, it's the perception, like, again, it all comes back to perception. So if they imagine that, there's a specific kind of quality that is to be associated with that packaging format, why would you spend $100 on a box of something else, especially if you don't know Tablas Creek? The benefit that we have is that we do have a very strong direct-to-consumer relationship, with our wine club members and people that come into our tasting room. And so being able to talk one-on-one with people and, teach them about bag and box and even sample them on it, like we typically have one of the bag and box open here. And so like, I'm sure you can have somebody come into the tasting room and do a side-by-side tasting like you were talking about earlier of, the 750 milliliter glass bottle versus the bag and box. And so that they can actually experience firsthand that like, this is the same wine. It's just a much more truly practical format.
Right.
Yeah.
Much easier to carry this than 4 bottles.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so Tablas Creek, and you did mention it earlier, Tablas Creek is just synonymous with regenerative, organic, all of sustainability. And so to me, it makes complete sense that you are leading the way with the boxed wine. And I love that you have all of the information on the back so people can see it, the reduction of the carbon footprint, the preservation, the storage space, the portability. I mean, think about it. You can bring this to the beach. You can bring it to a pool, right? Because it's not going to potentially, it's not potentially going to break and then somebody's going to step on it. So there's so many other positives to it also. But what I do like, and I do think Tablas Creek is, and you've kind of alluded to it, that by selling the box, you're not just selling a product, you're asking people and inviting people for a change in their behavior and their perception, and you're welcoming a conversation. And so it, those longtime fans, the converts, the people, it's like this person tells this person and this person tells this person. And so I'm glad to hear that you sold out in 4 hours in that first day. But I think that's a lot of tribute to Tablas Creek as a winery and, demonstrating the quality. Because I don't think anybody who knows Tablas Creek would think for a millisecond that you're going to put out something that's not a quality wine.
Right. Yes, we care very deeply. And I mean, you're talking about, again, building that community, and the people that walk into Tablas Creek do want to be part of that. And we want them to be part of that. And a huge part of that is education. And everybody that works in our tasting room is highly educated as far as, Tablas Creek wines are concerned, Rhone wines are concerned, Beaucastel wines, farming practices, things that we're doing. And so to walk into our tasting room and get an education like that now brings everybody into our orbit and, part of our world. So having consumers that are interested and really, getting a great product and doing something that I hope is, like pushing the needle in the right direction. We're all in it together.
And so we're coming up on the hour, and I don't want to keep you long, but I want to make sure, is there anything that I missed about boxed wine that you want people to know, or maybe 2 fast facts or something like that, that people can remember about boxed wine?
I think the 2 fast facts, we already touched on it, but I think it's definitely important to hammer home, keep it cool, keep it in a dark, cool environment, and that'll treat you well. I think the chillable wines are probably the best bet, just because you can just stash them in your fridge and they're always there for you. And I think, support the format. And I'm not just talking about Tablas Creek. Obviously, I hope you enjoy the Tablas Creek wines, but there's a number of other wineries, not just in Paso Robles, but throughout California, that I know are doing some really, really fantastic bag-in-box wines. Go out and give them a try and support your local winemaker.
Yes. And then lastly, before we go, how can people find Tablas Creek? Are we by appointment only? And can we order bag in box online? Or is it at the tasting room only? Tell us how to get this wonderful wine.
Yeah, so I would say the best thing would be to come visit us at Tablas Creek, because then you get the whole immersive experience, which is definitely going to be the ultimate. So we're in Paso Robles, California, and you can visit plenty of other wineries while you're here. But if you can't make it out to Tablas, we're always available at tablascreek.com, and you can order online, have it shipped to your home. We've got the packaging all figured out, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, but definitely the way to do it would be to come out here and visit us in person.
And now I see you moved your sign, so it's easier to take a picture of.
Yes, there's plenty of beautiful photo opportunities, but even better, plenty of memory opportunities too. Learning a little bit about our farming and our house here, and just our community here in Paso Robles.
And I will also say to follow Tablas Creek, follow Jason Haas on social media, because he is a walking encyclopedia, man.
It's true. It's true.
You can go up to him and say, what was the vintage, blah, 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 like, and he will whip that information out. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to look into my notes and what that, but every time he's live, I get that notification that he's live, and I will always go check it out, because he is never just on for kicks. He is always on with some information that is intriguing, interesting, and so educational that it just helps you understand what you're doing at Tablas Creek and why it's so important. And just in general, just if you're interested in learning about wine, which I assume people are if they're listening to this podcast, because this is what we do, then you need to follow him also, because the education just exudes out of him. So thank you so much for taking time. And I wish you a very happy and productive and successful harvest. I don't know how many lines you've already got on your board of what's been pulled in. I'm sure it's at the emptier side at this point, soon to be extremely full.
Yeah, we're getting ready, but this weather's holding out. So yeah, I think we've got a mellow couple days and then we'll get back into it next week. But Lori, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You have a great day. Good luck with everything.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very special. You are so special.
This has been another episode of Exploring the Wine Glass. Thanks for listening. If you have suggestions on what topics you would like me to discuss, please reach out on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Exploring the Wine Glass. I am also on LinkedIn as Lori Hoyt Budd. Of course, you can always email me at exploringthewineglass@gmail.com and sign up for my newsletter at exploringthewineglass.com. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find me more easily. And most importantly, tell your wine-loving friends, because if you like the podcast, they will too. Podcast music is Wine by Kevins. Until next week, Slainte.
I want a nice glass right now. I'm on keeping for my 10,000 tell you. There is always time for a good glass of wine. No, no, no. Oh, no, no, no. Never let you go. Oh, oh. No, no, no. Never let you go. I want a nice glass right now.